Hi, lovely. How are you?
Hello, I'm good. I'm very good.
Good.
I'm ready to chat with you.
Yeah. I'm excited to chat. It feels like, yeah, it's been a little bit of time since our last one, a couple of weeks. So ready to have another conversation. So
Yeah,
today,
yeah, and I feel like the energies. Oh, sorry. I feel like the energies in the air is ready to accept us to enhance our conversation. So I'm excited.
Ooh. I'm glad you feel that. I do too. And for anyone listening, there may be a bit of delay between Anja and I. So if we talk over each other, it's only because we are waiting for I need to wait for the delay, basically. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about or conversing around buying the dip. So if you have been in the crypto space for any amount of time, or you've kind of tapped into the Bitcoin arena, you will have probably heard about buying the dip or people telling you to buy the dip. And so we wanted to kind of dig into what they mean, what that means, and some of the kind of key assumptions that that statement relies upon. So I will pass it over to Anja to tell me what what does like why is buying the dip important, or like what does it mean to you? What is buying the dip? Maybe we'll start there.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, I initially I didn't really have a sense of buying the dip because when I came in 2020, we were on an increase. You know, the market was going up for crypto, and at least when I got in. So there were little dips. They were always like these like little dips, maybe once a week, twice a week, once a day. But they were maybe 5-10% at the most. And for me, that was a big deal because I was like, oh my God, I just put money in and now it's like dipping down, because I was relatively new to investing in general, but especially in crypto. So I would then try to buy that little dip, but I would always kind of miss it, and then it didn't quite sink into at that point what buying the dip means, because I understand it now, being in a bear market and us having like made some significant downward motion, what, 70%, 80%, and it depends on the coin, but a significant amount. And now I wish I had taken all those profits because that sort of goes with buying the dip, in terms of when you make profits, you take it off, take whatever, you take your profits and you hold them and then you wait for that big dip. But I wasn't doing that. So I am now sort of really like understanding, okay, this is the dip. Now is the time for buying this dip because it's so significant of a decrease. But now I put all my money in, so I don't have any money to buy this dip. I mean, I am, trying to save as much as I can via the income I get with my day job, and try to buy the dip. And I sometimes think, well, and I wouldn't really do this, but should I sell my car? Should I sell my house and buy this dip? Because we're in a major dip. And it still might go a little bit further, but I can't sell my house. I can't sell my car. I just can't do it. I thought, oh, maybe I can sell my mother. Like, how much can I get for my mother? Sell her. So yeah, that's kind of my first reaction to that question about buying the dip.
Oh, it's a good answer because
What?
you've given your experience, which is always good because I tend to kind of go systems, and you're really good at going personal, which is really important. So
yeah, I think we have a fun back and forth because of that.
yeah.
So from what I said, what is your like big picture systems response to that?
Well, what I was thinking is to explain about the motion of the market, I think to explain what a dip is quickly. So when we have an asset, a sustainable asset that people want to engage in, and that is something that buying the dip, the assumption that it relies on is that this is an asset. So if it's Bitcoin or if it's, I don't know, Shell stocks, you have an underlying assumption or belief that ultimately that asset will go up in price again. So there is this, so we have these assets, and when we are tracking price over a period of time, it tends to move in cycles or in waves. So they're called cycles, but they're more like waves where they go up, hit highs, people sell, and they start to descend, 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 descend. And then there's a period of kind of flat consolidation, and then they rise again, and then they fall again. And the kind of the moment between the trough and the peak to the trough, it can be, depending on the asset, that can be huge amounts of time, or it can be quite short amounts of time. So if we look at the kind of general stock market, we can see that overall, like since 2008, there's kind of been, when we had this huge crash, big dip, we've seen a kind of steady incline for a long period. Whereas when we look at something like Bitcoin, we have these big peaks and troughs, and then the peaks get higher each time. So it's kind of like an upward wave. So the key to buying the dip is essentially to buy it at that bottom, so the lowest price possible, and then to essentially accumulate and to hodl if you want to long term, if you want to hold long term, or you may want to take your profit, sell at that high. Easier said than done, because we don't know when the bottom is and we don't know where the top is. So it's a kind of, a bit of a kind of averaging out game. So it's really important not to put in all your money when you first enter a space, because you may think that that's the lowest point, but we may quite easily go lower. So there's something called dollar cost averaging, where you basically have a portion of money and you go in steadily and slowly. And that's over a period of time and a period of price ranges. So trying to kind of look across time and just buy at the lowest prices that you can. And so that when the market does move up, because that's the assumption that we will recover, the market will come up again, the price will rise again, that you will then be able to make profit and take profit. So the lower you buy coins, the more profit you can make when we go up. And then as you go up, the key is to take little bits of profit as you go. And then as you come down, to buy the dips. So keep buying it when it comes down, because it can kind of come in like these downward kind of steps. So at each kind of bottom, you might think that's the bottom. So you buy a little bit, but then we may drop further. So you buy a little bit more. We may drop further, you buy a little bit more. So you're kind of, everything is about an averaging game. So when we say buy the dips, pretty much you could buy every dip if you wanted to, but just a really small amount, because we don't know how many dips we're going to have until we get to that bottom. It's very hard to predict the bottom and the top of the market. And I think anyone in crypto, if they haven't been involved in a big kind of descent, and if they haven't run out of money at some point to put in, then I don't think they're doing it right. Or they just, I mean, then they have to have come in with absolute clarity from the first. So that's kind of what we teach as well, is just like how to invest smartly, because mostly when you first come into an asset, you're so excited, you just think whatever price you're buying in at is the cheapest price, which is very unlikely to be. But like you said, now I'm like, oh, I need more money to put in, because this is a big dip and we could go lower, but we've already fallen, like Anja said, like 60-70%. And so this is the kind of time you're waiting for, that period where you kind of have this consolidation. It's fallen so far that the space is quite fearful, and then it kind of steadies off. So I was just sort of teaching them, not much of a conversation. So I just felt like I needed to explain a little bit about that. Do you think I left anything out? I'm trying to think. Or anything to add?
No, I mean, that's the big struggle when you're getting in, when you're first starting, is really getting a sense about buying those dips. Because I hear it all the time, in my brain, but you get so caught up in the excitement and different people on the space, especially when you start following folks on Twitter and YouTube, which are great places to learn. But you're also then, being a newcomer, tend to give them a lot of, you're like, oh, they know exactly what they're talking about. And so you're like, oh, they say buy this coin, and you buy it. You get, because you just don't have quite yet that confidence and that knowledge. So you just like do all kinds of crazy stuff. But one of the things though, is that I don't regret all those crazy mistakes I made, and I lost some money on the way, but I keep thinking about, and I've heard this before in this space, about, you're paying for an education. It's like going to college and you learn how to write the most amazing essays. Initially you're writing like just free form, and you're not like creating maybe this cohesive essay that people can really understand. So you're spending all this money on this education, and it's the same way in that sense with crypto. There's maybe not that university, but you're just learning by doing. And I guess that's one of the best ways of learning, along with some extra support through education, but really learning by doing is so huge in crypto. And so I don't regret all those mistakes I made, because I learned a lot. And it's, again, like this feeling, you get a sense, if you keep making these mistakes, even though you shouldn't be doing this, eventually you feel it. And then you become, and it depends on your personality type. Some people are naturally very cautious and very analytical, and they might get into the space and do what they're supposed to be doing from the education they're receiving in the space. But me, I am a very emotional, like loving the excitement kind of gal. So I had to learn in a different way. So I think, and everybody except, people, again, the space is so supportive in that sense. They're like, yeah, you learn this way, we learn this way. And we're all trying to work together to educate everybody and to get them into this very, very important and future oriented space. So I hope that wasn't too much of a rant on of my response to your question.
No, I thought that was wonderful.
Which was, did I have anything to add? And that was what I had to add.
You do. It's good. It's wonderful. Because I think it's really important to speak to having no regrets. I totally agree. And I think that we try through our course and our program to really be there as a support, to hold everyone's sort of hand in a way as we go through this process, to really reiterate this strategy and like how to kind of navigate it best. But even when you know it, there's a psychological aspect to the market, which is kind of why we have these peaks and troughs. People go into greed and then they fall into fear. And when people are in greed, they should sell, but they think they're going to get more. They're like, we're never going to stop going up. The price is never going to stop going up. So you don't sell. And then when it starts to tip, you think, oh, it's just a short-term dip and we'll move back up, but it keeps falling, and you've started accumulating again because you're buying the dip, and suddenly it keeps falling, and so you never sold because you don't want to sell because you started buying the dip, so you basically never sold. Then as you get really, really low, what happens is there's a huge amount of fear generated because you can't believe how low it went, the price. And so that's a period when actually a lot of people sell. So as we're coming down, you get to a point where you think, I'm just done with this. I just can't hold any longer. I just need to at least take, you maybe put in 5 grand at the top, it was 10 grand and now it's 2 grand. And you think it's going to go to zero. I might as well just take out the 2 grand I have and just call the 3 grand a loss. Never mind. Now that point, at that low when everyone's feeling fear, is when the big dogs swoop in and buy, because the time when everybody is selling and everybody is telling you that the space is dead and done, that's the time to buy. So psychologically, everybody, pretty much, I would say 99% of everybody that I've worked with and have spoken to, we all get this feeling like when it starts to go up, there's this, and it doesn't really feel like greed. Honestly, it feels like excitement and possibility and trust and belief and excitement and hope. And it just, it's kind of, and then you think, should I sell? And you have this like internal conflict. And then when it falls really low, you start to feel like, you will feel like the kind of the weight of that, the worry, the despair. There's something called FUD, which is fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And everybody kind of feels that. And so there's actually this is sort of almost scripted. There's a Wall Street cheat sheet that kind of scripts that process out because it's so common to the majority of people. So we almost assume that you will feel that. And so it's like trying to work with doing the opposite of what you feel you want to do, which is really strange. And that takes practice. So even like, so what you were saying, Anja, like you're like in your mind, you think, I shouldn't be doing this. But you're like, oh, I'm going to just, it's either selling low or it's buying like at a high price because your body like just wants to do it. And so it's really important to have an education around it so that you have support, so you can really try to ground yourself. But to know that if you make mistakes here and there, that is part of your journey of growth. And then each time, it's like touching a hot hob. So, each time you get more and more clued up, you get more and more confident. But it is really, I think it is really important to kind of, to have experience mixed with good education, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, that education is key. And then additionally, that support system that backs up that education, because you can learn it and know it, but then you can also sort of emotionally, again, intellectually you remember it, but emotionally it's sort of, you're on to the next thing. So having then that community to keep coming back to and sharing stories and supporting each other. Yeah, I think that's that's the beauty of the the crypto ethic, is because there is the education, but then there's the follow through with those students where there's these meetings, various meetings and gatherings. So yeah, and that's in general with the crypto space community. That's for me part of the excitement and playfulness is having community and everybody, like we all have this sense like crypto, Bitcoin, this is the future. We know it, and it's an exciting future. It's different. It's powerful. It offers us autonomy financially, and then because of that in other senses. So, I mean, one thing I did do right is that I still have not sold my Bitcoin. That's something I couldn't sell. I've taken quite a loss, but it's like, you don't know when is that bottom. So if you sell, and then, we're at the bottom, you sell and then it goes higher. And then you have to try to like catch up to that price going higher, and you just don't know. So one thing that, I did learn is holding my Bitcoin and then buying the dip with various sources of income that come my way as I'm waiting. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying.
I don't think any people, anybody in crypto has not gone through that experience of it's just part of the initiation into the crypto space. And again, it comes down to when you put money in, it should be money that you know that it's okay if you lose it. This is like a major exciting dip in a way. And I think it's a great time to start DCAing, dollar cost averaging in, like you said, which I've started doing as well.
So,
okay.
I'm trying to think what other
Buy the dip.
Buy the dip. Did you bring your dips?
But dollar cost averaging while you're doing.
Yes. I brought some dips, but I forgot the chips.
Oh, the chips in the dip.
I just bought the dips.
I forgot about all those dips and the chips.
Yeah.
Oh,
Good memes around buying the dip.
Crypto has the best memes. I hope folks enjoy it and learn from it in a conversational way. It's yeah.
Yeah. Well, I really enjoyed talking to you, my lovely. And I'll speak to you next time.
Okay. Ciao.
Bye.